Hello and welcome everyone. I'm the Upper Down, aka Tud, and today we're going to be continuing our Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced playthrough. In the last one, we were working on some new abilities here. Tud is working on Steel Helm. He just completed the Steel Armor and Counter abilities. We have Mont Blanc currently working on Steel Armor, after finishing up what he was working on in the Juggler class. Now we have Nexu as a Paladin. Just completed some of the abilities that he was working on in the Fighter tree. Now we have Kaif working on Bolt Sword. The goal there is to mix up the damage types that each of my characters has access to. Then we have Yatulio, the Morpher. He just finished working on Bomb, I believe, and has now gained access to Lamia. This is one of, if not the best Morpher ability. Being able to turn into a snake and cast different snake-like abilities. There is one particular ability that they have access to that will essentially trivialize any opponent that you happen to face, outside of bosses, of course. And we'll see more of that in the first combat that I get into in this playthrough, or this session, I should say. Next we have Leticia in the Elementalist role. She is still finishing up Slip Rain here. She's at 140 out of 200. So that should be another battle or two, and then she can move on to the next ability. We have access to White Flame, which is a healing spell. And I believe that's all we have at the moment. So we will have to stop at the shop and pick something up. Now, let's take a look at our clan's current mission list. There is none currently. Alright, any clan turf wars going on? Yes, we do have one. The Lutia Pass is currently under attack. And fighting these turf battles, they are a 4 against 4 combat, but they do grant 80 ability points instead of the standard 50 that you would get from a normal combat, or potentially 40 or less from a story combat. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here. Alright, current laws, no use of great swords or blades. Let's take a look at our party here to see what they're using. Tud is using a knife, so no concern there. Next we have Mont Blanc, who is also using a knife. Again, no issue there. We'll go ahead and use him in this combat. Now, Nexu is using a Night Sword. Night Swords do not count as great swords. So I will be able to use Nexu in this combat if I decide to do so. And I think that I will. The fighter tech is very overpowered. Kaif is using a blade, which would nullify his actions. So we would not be able to use him in this battle. We will move on here. Yatulio, I definitely want to have in the battle. I want to showcase his new ability set. You know, more than Nexu, I would rather have Leticia in this battle. Getting her to complete the current ability that she's working on is of higher priority to me in this playthrough. Alright, so to start off this battle, I'm going to go ahead and move up here with Leticia and try to use Slip Rain on their soldier. The goal here is to slow them down in the turn rotation so that they take their turn last. Unfortunately, I did not succeed there, but that is okay. We will have more attempts later on. Now, a big concern to me is their healer. In order for my strategy to work, I need the healer to be out of commission. Ah, disable. My nemesis. Luckily, we were able to avoid that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and morph into the snake here. And unfortunately, I will have to wait till next turn before we can do anything fun with my morpher here. Alright, attempting to take a shot at Leticia. She has block arrows though, so that will do no good. I believe I can take out the soldier here with air render. Not quite. I can almost take out the archer. Ah, I might be able to take down the healer. Let's go ahead and attempt that here. Fantastic. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and use some black magic here. And due to elevation, Leticia will not be at risk here of taking any damage. Now, the different tiers of black magic do have a different elevation requirement. So, for example, the starting black magic abilities will be able to hit, I believe it is an elevation of 2. Now, the second tier I believe is 3, and the third tier is 4. The soldier hit and triggered the counterattack. Unfortunately, it did miss. So we will have to try again here to slow down this archer. And we succeeded. Okay, so he has moved to the end of the turn rotation. Their second archer here is about half health. Alright, now it's time to use my favorite ability. We're going to go ahead and use Song, and we will cast Poison Frog. Poison Frog has no mana cost, and will give us a % chance to poison and turn the opponent into a frog. If we succeed at turning the opponent into a frog, they essentially become defenseless. They have no attack and no defense whatsoever. And we succeeded both at the poison and frog shape. Let's go ahead and remove the archer up top here. We do 36 damage here. Would not be enough to take the opponent down, but would definitely put them in critical health. We've leveled up to level 9. Going to back off for now. And the frog has gained a turn. He's going to go ahead and attempt to attack my Moogle here. Mont Blanc. He has dealt 1 damage. That is the cap on damage that a frog can deal. Let's go ahead and take out their archer here. Now there are a few different attacks that the snakes have access to. For example, Twister, which will reduce HP by half in an area. Very helpful if you're dealing with an opponent that has a very large health pool that might take you otherwise a long time to make it through. Especially if that opponent happens to have high physical or magical defense counter to your primary. Now, Poison Frog we've already discussed. They have the ability Kiss, Sweet Kiss, charms, and dooms a target. Charm will effectively make the character in question your ally until they are dealt damage, or if an ability is used to cleanse that debuff, quote-unquote debuff. They have access to the ability Night. That is one of the few abilities that actually has a spell cost in the snake tree here. Call to the Darkness puts all enemies to sleep. We have Hand Slap. Flat-handed slap delays the target's turn. So for now, I'm going to attempt to charm and doom this poor frog. 60% chance to do so. And we have succeeded. The frog is now charmed and doomed. After 3 turns, the frog will automatically perish. Now, just to see what the defense rating looks like, my main character Tud here would do 86 damage with an air render, whereas before he was only doing about 50, so the damage has gone up drastically. So let's go ahead and end this fight here, earn our easy ability points, and move on to the next. Alright, help Ludia clear. Leticia has mastered Slip Rain. Let's move on to town here. One of my favorite weapons. Lohengrin. This weapon has the ability to teach a Defender Aura or a Templar Haste. Both of these abilities are very useful. Aura essentially gives the Defender a heal every turn to themselves, of course, and an automatic revival upon death. Very useful to have. And the Templar has the Haste ability. Haste can be used on allies or enemies, whatever your preference may be. And it will increase the rate that that character receives turns, boosting them up in the turn order. So we will go ahead and buy one of these. I always like to have one on hand as soon as possible. Ragnarok is also good. It gives drop weapon to the paladin that will unequip any weapon on the chosen enemy, and they will not be able to re-equip a weapon unless they have the item action selected as their secondary. It will also teach Templars how to use Silence. Silence will, essentially, when used on an enemy, prevent them from casting any spell that requires the use of mana. Very useful. I am not going to buy it at this time, though. There are other things that I would like to purchase first. Like this Estoc. This will teach the Red Mage Sleep and the Elementalist Heavy Dust. It will also give +2 speed to the character wielding it. So we definitely want that. We also potentially could get Earth Heal and Cure. Another good one to keep on hand. We have Fire for the Red Mage and Fire Whip for the Elementalist. Going to pick that up as well. I'm trying to learn as many of the Red Mage abilities as I can. It will come in handy later on. We also have Barrier here. Barrier is an ability that will prevent any sort of colored magic. That is black, white, blue, and red magic from hitting whatever character is affected by the barrier. And it is an AoE ability, so for example, if you have 2 or 3, up to 5 characters within a 1-tile radius of one another, you can use that ability on them and it will apply to all of them. I will hold off on buying that for now, as it is rather expensive and there are some other things I would like to get in the meantime. For example, this Cure Staff, which will give us access to Cura, the Tier 2 healing spell. We also have the Garnet Staff here, which will teach Barrier to the Bishop, as well as Carbuncle to the Summoner. That is another one I will be purchasing later on. We already have all of the Tier 2 basic elementals. We also have access to Slow for the Time Mage, as well as Quarter. I will pick up this Slow Staff, just in case. We have some more weapons here, intended for the Numu. Drain, Blind, and Poison. Astra is essentially Metra Magic for the Blue Mage, and what it does is it reverses the health and mana remaining from the character you choose to use it on. Alright, let's look at the bows here. Things I don't currently have. Aim Arm. This will use Disable on an enemy that it is directed at. Burial is really good if you have zombie enemies in your combat. It will essentially, if successful, remove said zombie from the combat. I will purchase that just in case I find myself in need of it later on. We also could get Sonic Boom or Besotoxico. That is a poison ability. I don't believe it does any damage outright. All it does is give you a % chance to apply poison. Useful, but not overly so. Twin Bow gives Advice and Double Shot. Advice is really nice. It will, when used on an ally, give them a % crit increase, I believe. We also have access to some spears here. Fire, lightning, and ice, respectively. The Partisan Spear, which will give cheer to the Templar. Dragon Whisker, which will give Banga Cry. I believe that is an AoE ability. It does pretty decent damage. We have some more items here. Beast Tamer can learn to tame panthers and goblins. The Animist can learn Catnip. I don't recall off the top of my head what catnip does. Don't use it too often, but I do believe it is a status enhancement. We have Earth Bell here for Dragon, and 100% Wool, which is a defense and magic resist, I believe, buff. We have the weapon here for Floatai and Undead. That is fantastic. Chocobo Rush, we've seen that a couple of times in the territorial defense battles. Exercise essentially does the same thing that the bow does to remove undead enemies from a combat. Exercise will do that in the same manner. And we also have the Gadgeteer here. Gadgeteers are essentially a coin flip. When you activate one of their abilities, it will either hit everyone in your party or everyone in the enemy's party. Now, the Gadgeteers have access to damaging abilities as well as buffs, so you could potentially end up buffing your enemy and damaging yourself. You never know. Few different guns here. We could get Blind Shot and Fire Shot, as well as Bolt Shot and Confusion Shot. All very nice abilities. We have all the shields already. Have plenty of boots. I'm going to buy an extra set of gauntlets. Never know when that might come in handy. Several pieces of armor here that I do not own yet. Power Sash. This will give return fire to the Assassin and the Juggler. It will cost 7,000 though. It also gives a slight weapon attack increase. One of the only armors to do so. It is definitely worth picking up, so I will go ahead and grab that. I have just enough money to pick up another headband here, so I'll go ahead and grab that. And let's go equip our characters. Okay, so Tud. I could give the headband to Tud. He would lose 4 resistance, but he would gain 5 weapon attack, as well as 4 defense. He would also lose quite a bit of evasion. 7, it looks like. Alright, so Mont Blanc already has maintenance mastered, so there is no need to keep the adamantite vest equipped. I'm instead going to put on Power Sash to increase his stats here. Nektu, unfortunately, I don't believe... no, he cannot use the headband, so we will move on to the next character here. Evasion is already sort of low on the Gladiator. I don't know if there is necessarily a good reason to keep the shield. Looking at the prospective defense and weapon attack increase, I'm going to go ahead and make the decision to swap the shield with the headband here. Our Morpher cannot use shields, and Leticia can use shields, so we could potentially switch out a shield here for her, but that would not be in her best interest, I don't believe. For the minor, resistance increase and evasion, not worth it, so we will move on from that and start replacing weapons. Alright, so as an elementalist, we're going to look at either Heavy Dust, Earth Heal, or Fire Whip. Heavy Dust, I believe, has the potential to cause blind. Ah, no, it is Immobilize. Let me go ahead and reorganize everything so I'm not constantly struggling to find everything. Alright, so if we decided to go with Earth Heal, I believe that is a medium tier heal. Not bad. We have Fire Whip, which will disable an enemy. Alright, so those are our three choices at the moment. Heavy Dust to immobilize, Earth Heal, or Fire Whip. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up Fire Whip here, having a character that can use Disable is very beneficial, especially when you're trying to use your Morpher. Alright, so we are essentially out of money, cannot buy any missions at the moment, so we're going to go ahead and search for another random encounter. And I think we found our opponent here. Alright. Clan Shalo. No use of broadswords or prayer here. Tud is a thief, so he does not use broadswords. Same with Mont Blanc. Nektsu, however, uses Night Swords, so he is also unaffected. He is almost done learning defense, so we will put him in this battle with the anticipation of completing that on the following turn, following battle. Bolt Sword is still underworks here. On second thought. Yes, I think I'm actually going to switch Kaif here over to White Monk. And my reasoning for that is I want to pick up the counter ability. That will come in handy later on. Now, unfortunately, I do not have any weapons for Kaif at the moment that will grant any sort of abilities. But just getting counter started... Ooh, actually I take that back. Kaif did not have air render. I did not know that. So yes, we will be working on that. So, as our secondary, there are two contenders. Dragon Tech, which will give us the ability to use Ice Breath, and Spellblade, which will give us the abilities Rush and Fire Sword. Now, it's essentially a toss-up here. Both are really good. Having access to Fire Sword is a damage boost for sure. Unfortunately, it is a melee ability, whereas the Ice Breath ability is actually one tile in front, and then 3 tiles directly in front of that. So that is a much wider burst with the ability of hitting multiple enemies at once. So we are going to go with that. Let me double check here to make sure I equipped. Yes, I did. Counter is active. Alright, let's give this fight a go. I'm going to try to turn at least one of the enemies into a frog, perhaps more. Let's go ahead and start off with Letitia here. We're going to go ahead and try to use Fire Whip to disable the enemy. We only have a 50% chance, and I believe we only get 3 uses before we run out of mana. Was that successful? It was not. We did the damage, but we did not apply the debuff. Alright, let's have Kaif here use Air Render. That would do 50 damage if it hits. It is only a 45% chance to hit, though. But it did. Fantastic. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and morph into a snake. Let's go ahead and move up here. My intention is to turn their healer into a snake. He has the ability to remove status ailments applied to others, but not to himself. As if he gets turned into a frog, it will remove his ability to use any action other than melee attack. Alright. So I could attempt to hit the white monk here, but I'd only have a 39% chance due to his evasion. Instead, I'm going to go with the 50-50 chance here of taking out their warrior. Unfortunately, it was a miss. This time I feel much better about my odds. This should take him out. Unfortunately, he is very resilient. Decided to go ahead and use a heal here to bring his ally back up to, looks like about half health, maybe a little over. Damage mana points will activate if that attack had landed. Fortunately, it did not. I believe this is in the water. No, it's not. Okay. So we will go ahead and take a look at our opponents here for their equipment. Bronze armor. Unfortunately, none of these enemies... let me back up here. Unfortunately, there is not a steal ability in the game to steal boots from your opponents. So I will not be able to steal that, however I can take their armor from them, which will decrease their defense and resistances proportionately. Unfortunately, that did not hit. Counter will trigger here. Unfortunately, he missed. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to disable the white monk here. Attacking from the side should increase my chances. Yes, it will be 70% chance. .24 damage. Did the ability work? It did. Fantastic. Alright, let's go ahead and take out their Animist here with an Air Render. 50 damage if it hits. I'm going to go ahead and double check the White Mage's abilities here. He does in fact have the spell that will remove debuffs. So if I attempt to use Poison Frog on that fellow to my left, he would simply remove the ability. So we need to first turn him into a frog. We only have a 50% chance. Let's see what happens. Unfortunately, we have failed. We go ahead and attempt to remove the warrior from the game again. With any luck, he will be out of combat. Fantastic. And this should be the end of the White Monk. Going to attempt to melee it. Oh no, he's going to attempt to revive. I forgot that he had access to that ability. Fantastic. He's going to attempt to attack... Oh, disarm. Seeing a lot of abilities from these guys that they don't normally do. Unfortunately, that particular ability is especially devastating for me because I was working on learning a new technique. And now we'll do no damage. Catnip applies Berserk, which will enrage an enemy, essentially forcing them to use only melee attacks. We are all now too far away to participate in this combat. I don't even think my magic will reach. So we will simply wait. Another character who cannot reach the field of battle. Kaif is now going to attempt to melee attack for almost no damage. 29. 30. Almost a critical. Let's now attempt once again to turn their healer into a frog. If we do that, he will no longer be a threat, and this battle will essentially be over. Unlike most debuffs, Frog Shape does not have a timer. It will not wear off. Whereas something like Disarm, Immobilize, or Sleep would wear off after a duration. He has dealt 1 damage there. Let's go ahead and attempt a poison here. That was successful, fantastic. While I'm here, I might as well steal, or attempt to steal, his armor. I have an 80% chance to do so. Fantastic. Knock back. If successful, it will knock me back space. 20 damage there. Counter will go off. Oh. Interesting fact, if you deal a crit and knock an enemy away, it will remove their chance at a counter. This attack should be fatal, but unfortunately it missed. Alright, we are going to go ahead and use Frog Shape once again. That is my all-time favorite Morpher ability, and I use it every opportunity that I get. Unfortunately, we missed. I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to steal his armor here. Bronze armor, fantastic. Bronze armor sells for about 500 gold, so if you're looking to make money early on and you have access to that weapon, you can steal yourself a fortune. We're going to go ahead and attempt to use some magic here. 42 damage to the frog, that would be enough to take him out. $39 damage here. 38. This enemy only has 4 health remaining. I more or less anticipated the poison to do that. And if this attack is successful, this will be a fatal blow. Alright, and that is the end of this combat. That went well, let's keep up the good work. 50 ability points there. Unfortunately, our white monk here, Kaif, did not gain any progress towards Air Render. Since he had his weapon knocked away, we will have to continue here, building up ability points for an additional battle. It's always fun trying to guess which way the enemies are going to go, especially if you are trying to avoid fighting a certain group of enemies. Now, this group's healer I don't believe has the life ability, no, but does have the cure status ailments ability, so any enemy I place a debuff on, she has the opportunity to remove it from. In this combat we have to be careful not to use any ice or berserk. Berserk is an ability that would essentially enrage an enemy, preventing them from using regular abilities and forcing them to only melee attack. Now, Poison Frog does not count in the same fashion because it does not fall under the Berserk category. So no need to fear there, we will have plenty of opportunities to turn our opponents into frogs in this combat. Alright, so first up we have the enemy archer. She's going to take a step back here and attempt to shoot my elementalist and miss because of the reaction ability, Block Arrows. Now I'm going to go ahead and attempt to use a Slip Rain here, which has a chance to slow the enemy that I use it on. And slow is a special debuff that cannot be removed by a healer. That simply has to be removed by time itself. Their thief here is going to attempt to steal one of my judge points. He was successful. Don't fret, however. We can easily reacquire more judge points. We will eventually have more than we know what to do with. Let's go ahead and attempt to bring their archer down to critical health. If successful, this will bring them very low. She is now in the single digits of health. And Kaif is leveled up. We're going to go ahead and morph here into a snake. So looking as far as difficulty in combination with health, I'm going to go ahead and move over here to position myself for the next turn to turn their thief into a frog. Attempting to use heal here to bring their archer back up. This should put the archer at a little over half health. Unfortunately for them, it won't do much good here. I will be attacking right afterwards, and this should be a fatal blow. Ah. Dodge comes in clutch there for the archer. I'm gonna go ahead and use Air Render here on their second archer. And that removes them from the combat. 1 down and 4 to go. Going to try and remove the other archer from the combat if possible. Unfortunately, I don't think my magic is going to cut it here. Successful attack, but not quite enough damage to it. Darcy has finally gotten their turn. The soldier will now move. Unfortunately for them, they are attacking my white monk, who has counter. 52 damage, and it is KO for the soldier. Archer 1 has gained a turn here, and will now attempt to shoot my white monk with an arrow. It was successful, despite being a 35% chance to hit. Let us now go ahead and remove the archer from the combat. 58 damage critical. Their thief is going to most likely attack my Numu here, the Morpher, stealing a judge point. That's it. You are definitely getting turned into a frog. Alright, let's see if we can remove the healer. 60 damage will not be enough. This will bring the healer down to critical health. I wouldn't be surprised if her turn comes up next and she decides to heal herself. Let's go ahead and turn our wonderful Judge Point Thief here into a frog. 70% chance to do so. Now there will be no more theft. Interesting choice. I wonder why the healer decided not to heal themselves, and instead to attack for 4 damage. Seems counterintuitive. I'm gonna go ahead and take them out here with an air render. Alright, gonna throw out another air render here, this time from Tud. 87 damage. This will be more damage than health that they have to spare. And that will bring to a close the combat. That went well. Let's keep up the good work. 50 ability points here. Nectsu has mastered defense. Leticia has mastered Fire Whip. Okay, so let's go ahead and change Nectsu's weapon here. One thing I was looking at is the Lohengrin, but for the Defender, that has no useful ability for my Paladin, so instead I will go with the Mithril Brand here. This will allow them to learn the Knight combo. And Leticia has also finished working on an ability here. She has access to Fire Whip now. So let's go ahead and pick up Earth Heal. That will allow her to use healing magic in addition to her damaging abilities. Alright, and that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like and subscribe. That helps my channel out a lot. Or if you're watching from Twitch, please feel free to toss me a follow. Keep an eye out for more. Alright, until next time.